morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR. It's time now for the Morning Magazine, brought to you by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. Now, with the Morning Magazine, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's show on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. The reason why he's here, it's time for our monthly visit with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Sitting in for Sheriff Thomas Reichert, who may be calling in later in the morning, is Chief Deputy Randy Dorhorst and Investigative Captain Quentin Ellis. Good morning, guys.
Good morning.
Okay, get that microphone a little. Wait, that's the one.
Okay.
I see they moved that for TV purposes. They moved your normal mic away. Okay, I got it.
That works. I have a face for radio. Been told it many times.
That's my line. That's my career. Okay, so guys, it's been a busy summer across the area, and tonight here in Wisconsin Rapids, we got another big event with the community picnic and everything else. From the Wood County Sheriff's Department's view, how has this summer been so far?
The summer's been busy, but good as always. It's kind of been business as usual at the Sheriff's Department. There have been a number of larger events that we're used to staffing and handling. As you and I spoke before the show, you mentioned the Encourage Community Picnic tonight and the amount of planning that goes into one of those events. Every year we provide reserved deputies and deputy sheriffs at the state water ski show out at Lake Wazeecha. This year there is a Farm Technology Days up outside of Marshfield. And those are big events, but we're able to staff them and the ancillary issues that come along with them, generally traffic and the congestion of people and getting them in and out safely without having any major events. Fortunately, this year there was some weather during the ski show, but not as bad as a year or two ago when we had the bad storm come through. So with those events, we staff those and move on from those. It's kind of nice to be wrapping up the summer with regard to that and getting back to status quo, if you will. We've had a good summer as far as responses to calls for service. Haven't seen a huge increase or things along that line, which is good, because if we're busy, that means bad things are happening to other people. So the calmer it is for us, the better it's going for the community, and that's a good thing.
Let's talk about Farm Technologies and recap it from your, because we had Sean Becker here before when he was talking about the planning for all of that, and a lot of that had to do with traffic. And how did the plan work out? The day I went out there, I had no problems. I mean, you had to, coming out of the event, you had to wait a little bit because I left at the end of the day on Tuesday, but it looked like everything was working out okay from your standpoint. Did the plan work the way it was envisioned?
Yes, 3-year plan.
Yeah.
We started about 3 years ago planning for this, and I think it was very successful. Very little incidents whatsoever. Most of them were heat exhaustion. Mm-hmm. We had, other than that, it was stuff like that. A little bit of traffic congestion, but you're always going to have that. Things, you can plan for one way, they drive another way. But all in all, it went really well, very well, and it kind of tells you the amount of incidents we had. It was turned out well. The planning was well worth it.
You mentioned you can plan for, okay, we anticipate people are going to be coming this way, and they'll try and work a way around it to find the quote-unquote shortcut.
Right.
The quick route.
Yeah, the quick route. And so I know when I was coming, I forgot what highway it was, they had closed off one of the first entrances, probably because it was filled. So we went down to the next one, and there was somebody to lead us into it. But it's just stuff like that you just have to be aware of. I noticed there were a lot of deputy other law enforcement, Wood County Sheriffs, Marshfield Police, State Patrol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we utilized our reserve deputies for a good portion of that. And even the best laid plans, at times, something changes. Like you said, you may think you have the traffic flow figured out. You have to be able to improvise and adapt. And I believe the people up at the event were able to do so. Sometimes you change staffing levels according to perception of incident versus what is going on. You plan for the worst and hope for the best. And sometimes things have to be fluid along those lines. And we did that. I think the event went off without a hitch, and that's good. That's what we're hoping for. Anytime you get those large gatherings, we want the people, when they see the Sheriff's Department or our reserve deputies, or whether it be Marshfield Police Department, Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, we don't want them to see the cops, if you will, as crashing the party or a no-fun zone where they don't want anything like that. Our department isn't based that way. We're there to make sure that everybody's having a good time safely.
That's it.
We want people to enjoy their outing and get home safe. We're not there to lay the letter of the law down on everybody. We want to make sure that everybody's safe and so that everybody can enjoy the event. And I think that approach is really showing through in some of those events. I know certainly at the water ski show, that approach has led to a nicer event. I look back to my times when I was a reserve deputy 20 years ago. There was a lot more problems out at the ski show with people acting up, and then that was affecting the time that the other people were having.
Yeah. And then they don't want to come.
Exactly. And then our presence there, when you have to correct problems, you correct them. Outside of that, our presence is generally enough to kind of deter that. I mean, times have changed from when I was a reserve deputy 20 years ago. We probably wrote a significant amount more of citations for underage drinking and disorderly conduct and things like that among the teams. More in recent years, our deputies are out there and being asked to perform with the teams and dance with them and whatnot.
Okay, I want to ask you. So, how what's the general philosophy in providing law enforcement protection at these big events? You're right. You don't want to be oppressive or something like that. You want people to have a good time, and basically, you're kind of like what I view it as. You're like the umpire in baseball or a referee in a football game. If I don't notice you, you've done your job.
Exactly. They shouldn't decide the outcome, right?
Right.
And that's a good analogy, Carl. I believe Sheriff Reichert's direction and approach for the department is to be that. We're there if you need us. Outside of that, we'll be visible and available, but don't need to control every aspect of the event. I know he really wants the department to be out in the community, out of the squad cars, being seen, and have that positive community interaction. Because historically, people believe a contact with police is generally negative because they're either stopped for speeding or making a mistake, or they've done something that the police need to correct them on. And times are changing with regard to approach to that, and now law enforcement, I believe nationwide and certainly at our local level, is looking to be more community oriented and getting the police out and having those positive interactions, which is beneficial. Then people see the police as somebody they can approach, a sheriff's deputy not as somebody that always writes them a ticket or arrests them, but somebody they can go to for help. They're comfortable approaching them then, and that's really what that small change can do.
Or sometimes it's just maybe a direction. I'm looking for this. Could you? Which way do I have to go?
Yeah.
Because sometimes you get in those big crowds, and I have to admit, when I got to farm technology days, gentlemen, I was blown away at the size. I mean, I know all about Tent City, but until you actually see Tent City, until you drive up and you see this thing that's basically looks like a fair in the middle of it, that's huge. You're going, holy buckets. And how long it took, like you said, yeah. Randy, 3 years of planning, and then how long it took to build, and I'm sure they might still be cleaning up the site.
At least a week after, they were still moving stuff. And
yeah. So, and then you guys had to make sure during that whole time that the area is protected, the investments of all that equipment and everything else are protected. And in the meantime, while you're up there, you got to worry about down in southern Wood County as well.
Oh, absolutely. You can't put all your resources or assets in one place, and that's sometimes a challenge with covering a jurisdiction the size of Wood County as opposed to a township, a village, a city. Is you may have a major event going on one end of the county, and then, for lack of better terms, hot calls going on the other. And that's a challenge that patrol supervisors and sheriff's department administration we're geared up and ready to handle. We are trained and experienced to know what we can allocate to one incident and still keep enough resources available to cover the other incidents while remaining fiscally responsible to taxpayers of Wood County.
And if you're just joining us on the Morning Magazine, welcome. We're getting our monthly visit with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Chief Deputy Randy Dorhorst and Investigative Captain Quentin Ellis are here. There were some accidents this summer. There have been this summer and the like. What is usually the cause of the accidents? I know sometimes you hear about a deer or something like that, but in terms of when you respond to traffic accidents, the bad ones, whether it be a fatal or someone seriously injured, what's usually the number one call, number one reason for it?
Well, that's starting to change some, but historically it's been speed.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing.
And now you're getting the distracted driving, whether it be talking on a cell phone, texting on a cell phone, Snapchatting, whatever apps the kids are using now, where their attention is distracted from the driving. Those are generally your top three: speed, alcohol, and inattentive. Due to whatever, whether it be an electronic device or other people in the car. Those still are the mainstays and causes for the crashes.
You guys put on those headsets because I think the boss is on the phone. Good morning.
Good morning. How's it going, Carl?
It's going good. Give our best to Missy.
I think you got my two favorite guys on the show with you today.
Yep. Jesse and Carl are here. You're right.
I'm sorry, Carl. I talked over you.
I was just going to say, give Missy our best.
I will. She's off and she's got things underway, and I think she's off to a good start. I know that she is a little homesick, for lack of a better word, for the folks that she was working with back at the heart of Wisconsin, and I know she's gonna miss everybody, and I know she's gonna miss coming over to the radio station and talking on the show with you, and just the. I think a lot of it is just the familiarity of it all, and I think that's probably going to be the most difficult thing that she's going to have in terms of adjusting to her new job. It was kind of fun. I was able to visit with Pam for a few minutes before she sent me over, and Missy is one of those people that is just blessed with the ability. For instance, if she just one day, I think, decided that she wanted to start a restaurant or start some other type of business. There's no doubt in my mind that it would be really, really successful. So, my thought is that I don't really think that she's going to have any issue at all in terms of the content professionally that she's going to have here. It's just more of an acclimation thing for her, and I think she's well underway to get going on that. I know she's met a lot of the folks that she works with now, and kind of get their feet on the ground there, so it's kind of a good thing.
Prior to you calling in, sir, we were talking, kind of reviewing some of the big events this summer, and then, of course, tonight in downtown Wisconsin Rapids, we have the big community picnic, and we were kind of talking about law enforcement and those kind of big events, and it looks like with Farm Tech Days, the plan got carried, that you folks had put together worked the way you liked it. The ski tournament, the water ski show tournament came off without a hitch. Your take on the big events this summer and the issues Wood County Sheriff's Department has been dealing with this year?
Sure. I don't think you get any much bigger event in central Wisconsin as the two things that you mentioned, Farm Progress and the state water ski show. And I think as a credit to our officers and to our administrators that were involved in it, everything went off literally without a hitch. We've had great success in the past with these types of things. Farm Progress, of course, was a new venture for us, and that's something that we would do. And my only comments to the folks that were doing that was not to worry really about what other places did. There's always a tendency, I think, for folks to come in and just replicate maybe what the county did before. While I think that a lot of that I think that knowledge is good. I don't know that you should enter into a project like Farm Progress Days just simply looking to replicate what other people have done. So, my only comment to Charlie and Charlie Hugesteger and Sean Becker, who headed that up for us, is to go in and put our ideas in, and put our values in, and put our practices in to make it Wood County, and they did that. We got through it, and it seemed like it went exceptionally well. Same thing, with the water ski show. I think it's always dangerous just to think of something in terms of, we've done that before, it won't happen again. But we certainly have been through things on the water ski show before. We've got that routine down. We've done well with it. The issues that maybe come up on the fly during it, we're able to deal with quite well. And I'm really proud of our guys. I'm proud of our administrators that got everything set up and rolling on that. Okay. And I think there's a tendency, and we notice those big things that happen, and there's a ton of little things too, though, that people, particularly a lot of people that are out there slapping their jaws right now, don't really appreciate that the sheriff's department does. Quentin Ellis in our administrative office does a great job in handling things that are internal and needs that, for instance, a school would have, or a business, or making sure that someone is taken care of when they're victims of crime. That a lot of that falls to Quentin, and he does a great job. Randy Dorhorst works on the budget tirelessly and reminds us all the time when we're overstepping where we should be going. You don't get to the point where we did with the credibility that we have with the county board and the actual list of accomplishments that we have as administration without having great people in place doing this. You don't just suddenly come up with $4 million and give it back to the county board just by luck. That just doesn't happen. You don't take an old organizational structure that was in place since 1965 and revamp it and have it be really successful by luck. None of those things just happen. They happen because quality people are in place, making the right decisions and putting things in order to make sure they all happen.
Randy, since the sheriff mentioned budget, what are some of the issues going forward that I know the new county board chairman put out a challenge to departments to cut their tax portion of the budget by 1%. And
we do our best to try to accept that challenge. There's always needs and wants. I really like a Rolls Royce, but do I need one? No. And all those things. This is budget time. The 15th, the budgets by law come out, and we start working on them. And it's a long process. You have to be fiscally responsible, and I'm being fiscally responsible myself as well. I'm a taxpayer, and I don't want to pay any more that I don't have to. I mean, there's a lot of nice things, again, with the Rolls Royce we would like, but do we really need that? No. Is that going to get us any farther? No. So we got to, it's time of the year, you got to look at things hard. Do we really need that? Do we want that? And same thing, and the last thing we want to do is cut service to the county. It's working well now. We don't want to take things away from them. We want to try to make them better for less money.
Okay. Yeah, Sheriff, your thoughts on that?
Well, it's challenging, and it's challenging. It's been challenging throughout my 13 years as sheriff. I know when I first came into office, we were really in crisis mode and crisis point where literally we had to make day-to-day decisions as to where we were going to spend our resources. I know it came. The one thing that really comes to mind immediately is we either we're going to go over budget, or we were going to. So we had a choice of either paying our corrections officers or eliminating the technical college program that we had back in the jail at the time. And my choice was to eliminate the program and to privatize it and have people come in and teach the prisoners, on a volunteer basis. And we were able to. So Randy Dorhorst and prior to him, Dave Ghostin, have done just a great job. And a lot of times, I think that these ideas that come from the county board chairman aren't really targeted to our department. We've been doing this stuff all along. When other departments were coming in with 5, 6, 7% increases in budget, we were at zero. We stayed at zero or below for probably in my 13 years, probably 11 of the 13 years.
Okay.
Very rare that we ever.
I hate to interrupt you, but you're starting to break up real bad. Well, could you?
Yeah,
why don't we? I gotta take my first break anyway. We'll take our first break, and why don't we disconnect this line and you call back, and we'll get you reconnected. Maybe that'll work. Okay. And you're listening to The Morning Magazine on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also welcome our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. It's our monthly visit with the Wood County Sheriff's Department here on The Morning Magazine.
Good morning and welcome back to The Morning Magazine, presented by Comfort Air Heating, Cooling, Plumbing. It's time for part 2. Once again, here's Carl Hilke.
Thank you, Jerry. Hopefully that sun can stick around. We want that community picnic to come off without a hitch. It's our monthly visit with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. On the phone is the Wood County Sheriff Thomas Reichert. In the studio, Chief Deputy Randy Dorhorst and Investigative Captain Quentin Ellis. So I'm going to ask the Sheriff, why do you choose these two guys to come in today?
Well, actually, I had asked Quentin to handle the radio show today. And I'm guessing that he probably asked Randy at about 8:15 or 8:30 to come on the radio.
You got that one right.
It was a little later than that time. I've learned.
It was a little later. Okay, perfect. Talking well. You've learned. You're such a quick study, Quentin, and I'm very proud of you.
There you go.
These two guys. Yeah, there couldn't be two better guys on the show. And particularly given. I know right now is a tough time of year for Randy because we were talking a little bit before our connection went bad before about budget, and that requires a lot of work on Randy's part, and he's just done a fantastic job of it in all the years we've been together. He's been my chief deputy now since 2010. So a lot of history there. We've been through a lot of budget issues. A lot of we were talking about the ideas that the county board chairman had, and I was mentioning we basically came up with this idea. Nothing that he's really saying to us is anything all that new. We were always frugal with the budget, and we always came in with at 0%. With a couple exceptions when we just weren't able to do it. But I can't tell you. I can't tell you how confident I am in terms of what our administrators are going to do. And at this time, Randy's kind of up, and it's budget time, and I'm sure it's going to turn out well.
The biggest, I'll throw this out for the whole group, the biggest problem area you've faced this summer in Wood County in terms of law enforcement, an issue that you've been dealing with, maybe it's been aggravating. We've talked about, distracted driving, but something that you want to get out to the public to say, stop doing that.
I don't think there's anything new or anything that's had us pulling our hair out per se, or something that we haven't been on top of. It never hurts to engage the public when it comes to scams, whether it be on the phone or internet. It seems as much information as we put out about those, unfortunately, people are still victimized by it. We're dealing with tragic to some, or certainly at a minimum unfortunate, the burglaries and thefts. Those have been around since the beginning of time and will be there for far into the future, I'm sure. We're equipped and ready to deal with those things, and those get to be a bulk of our caseload. The one thing where you're saying that we want to get information out to the public, is always anything that's preventable. The scams, the more people can educate themselves to not responding to, you won $5,000 in a Mercedes-Benz, you just need to send me $3,000 and you get the car. Or verify all your bank information now because it's been exposed, and then giving it to somebody on the phone or via email. Those things, we want to see the community help protect themselves from those things. Because in the best world, you don't need us to solve that crime. It's prevented. With regard to people of all ages, the message to not drink and drive, to be responsible about that, to pay attention when you're driving and slow down. That's universal. That's been around for a long time too. And through education and enforcement activity, I believe those issues are ever changing, because before there was maybe the distraction of too many kids in a car and driving and not paying attention. Well, statute changes came into effect for the graduated driver's license, restricting the number of passengers that could be in a vehicle. Well, now with the evolution of technology, it's cell phones and apps that people are on, and not going hands-free and paying attention to a phone rather than driving. There's been legislation in place to help us deal with that as well. So to your original question, there's not one issue that has us at the Sheriff's Department banging our head against the wall or saying, how do we deal with this? We're on top of it. We're equipped and trained to handle everything that's been thrown at us this summer. But those are just, kind of end-all be-alls that they're going to be around. But we need to continue to get the message out to the community to help protect themselves from falling victim to those crimes. Because if you educate yourself on the scams and how to handle them, you won't be a victim. If you make better choices to pay attention to your driving and slow down and stay off your devices, chances are you're a lot less likely to be in a crash. Outside of that, those are things that we can, as citizens or members of the community, control ourselves. I can't control whether a guy is going to break into my house and steal something, but I can control whether I voluntarily give information to a scammer. So that's why I hit on those things.
And some of that stuff is, quite elementary. I just always go back to it. About 20-some years ago, I taught a drug education classes, and one of the first things we talk about, what's a consequence? The consequence is the result of something you do or choose not to do. And whatever we do, there's a consequence with it. When somebody calls you up and asks you something you're not sure, or they want your bank account, you don't have to do that right away. We're always there to give us a call, stop, think about it. All these things that are done in a knee-jerk reaction. You get an email, they're asking some information. You don't have to reply to that request right away. Talk to somebody else about it. You get a phone call. You don't have to respond to that. I'll call you back. I'm not going to talk to you right now. I'm not prepared to answer your question or give you any information. You can always say no. It's not going to go away if it's a truthful call, a legitimate call. It's not going to go away. It's going to come back. Yeah. So you can address it at that point.
And if they start getting belligerent, and I've had folks call up the station and tell me, and these folks start getting belligerent, and I tell them, hang up. I go, that should tell you right away it's not a legitimate call.
And you always go with that gut feeling. I mean, you can tell something isn't right here, and when we do that quick knee-jerk reaction, that's where we get ourselves in trouble. We get an email, a phone call, just stop. We can always address that 10, 15 minutes down, later, or even the next day. We're always here to help. If there's any questions, give us a call. We're on 24/7.
And they seem to be, and now they're even using. I forgot the term, where they can, it'll show up on your caller ID as a legitimate business in the area, but it's not that.
Right. They're spoofing your calls.
Yeah, they're spoofing your calls, and even claiming to be like Sheriff Thomas Reichert or something like that.
Yeah. Or sometimes they email Sheriff Thomas Reichert and try and scam him. We had that happen recently. So they know no limits. They try to get to anybody they can. We get a chuckle out of the highest law enforcement official in the county getting a scam email. It's really...
Okay. What was the email, sir?
It was terrible. It was trying basically to extort money from me based on a threat that the scammer was going to expose bad things about me. It was something a little bit different than what we've normally seen, but it was obviously a scam nonetheless.
It seems the minute you catch up with one, there's a new scam.
They develop.
There's always a new one. The thing is, though, what we've always had in place, and what we've been doing, that's far different than what other departments have done, and what other agencies and other people are proponents of, is we've always approached things with the confidence that we were going to be able to solve them, whether or not it's a scam on the phone, whether or not it's a burglary type thing, whether or not it's a drug issue in our county. Our people that we have in place right now really embrace the idea that we are well trained, we are the best in the game in Wood County, and if whatever is thrown at us, we're going to be able to solve. And I always describe this as being a smart approach to crime. When other agencies or other people act like the sky is falling and things are being destroyed around us because of a certain circumstance, we very calmly approach the crisis or anything that we would have, whether that's drug investigations, whether that's burglaries, whether that's some type of crimes that are occurring within the county, and we've confidently dealt with them. That doesn't mean it's always easy. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that we have the answers for everything, but we know where we're going, and we know that we're confident in getting on reaching resolution for people. I really think that the folks right now are the folks being our investigators are doing, and our patrol officers are doing a better job than they ever have in the history of the department. Recently we just were involved in some rather major investigations and search warrants that, again, are going to result in many, many, many cases being solved by our county investigators. So, you always say, like in football or sports or something, who's got game? The sheriff's department does, and we are doing. We are really on top of our game right now. And in terms of your original question, Carl, I don't think there's anything out there right now that we aren't a positive force in solving or doing a good job of investigating.
I had an update last week with from the Wood County Drug Task Force on this show. We had a lady from the Wisconsin Rapids PD who's part of that drug task force. And one of the things we touched on is people, well, I give you a tip I don't know about, and we're going to do a tutorial on a future drug task force update on how an investigation is conducted. But we live in this culture where they watch something on TV and it's solved in 30 minutes, and they think that's the way real life is. Or if I give you a tip and I don't see immediate action, obviously you didn't follow up on it. Could you talk about that and let people know that sometimes it takes time?
Certainly. Well, we do have a lot of technology available to us at the Sheriff's Department. Not everything is solved within a half hour because of a fingerprint or DNA that can be rushed to some lab that's 5 minutes away. Realistically, some burglary cases we've submitted fingerprints on and DNA evidence and not received a result back from the state crime lab for 18 months or 2 years. And that's when we knew somebody who had done it. That was a corroborating piece of evidence, not the only piece of evidence. The other thing is sometimes a tip is followed up on immediately. More times than not, they're very promptly followed up on. But the Sheriff's Department is one that doesn't conduct its business, I guess, and broadcast it. If we're making progress on a case, that's between generally us and the victims and the case, the people involved that we're working on. Sheriff Reichert used a sports analogy of who's got game. I think of some things coaches have said to me or to other players is act like you've been there before. So when we're solving cases and we're making big progress, we're not tooting our own horn. We're not throwing a parade for ourselves. People expect that of us. We expect to solve these crimes. So we aren't out highlighting our accomplishments that way. So unfortunately, we don't solve crimes within a half hour generally. But the process, for instance, on an armed robbery that took place in the town of Saratoga, it took us about 9 months. And that seems to some people, how it took you that long. But if you think of it, it was a crime of very limited contact, took place in probably 45 seconds time, very little physical evidence left at the scene, and we were able to secure an arrest through interviews and good old-fashioned police work. We reached out to the community looking for help through Facebook and Crime Stoppers and things of the like. But what solved that case was our most senior investigator working with our team of investigators with their nose to the grindstone, following up on every lead that came in, and good old-fashioned police work. Interviewing, one interview led to 3 interviews more that eventually got us to the person. We found out exactly what happened, and we can hold that person accountable.
And you just brought up, Quentin, something very important. I think people forget. You're building a case. To make a quick arrest that leads to an acquittal doesn't accomplish anything.
Right.
You have to put together a case that the district attorney can take to a jury and get a conviction.
Absolutely. It's a matter of do you want it done quickly or do you want it done right? We want it done right. We have a great investigative team right now in place. As Sheriff Reichert stated, I firmly agree that our patrol staff and our staff at the Sheriff's Department are probably better trained and performing better than we ever have. We work together very well. And as I said, we're not one that is out tooting our horn about what we're doing. We're just getting the job done. You'll hear that in reference when people talk about cold cases and things of the like. That's a TV term. Even cases I'm sure people are referring to now are they're assigned to investigators. There's nothing that we just close because we can't get it. That's not our approach at the Sheriff's Department. Cases are open, assigned to investigators, and actively being worked on. We're just not one that are out, like I said, throwing a parade for ourselves.
Quite frankly, that's our job, and we take it very seriously. And more to say than that is we asking for a pat on the back. No, we're doing what we're supposed to do, and we're here because we enjoy our job and we want to do a nice thing for our community. We live here. We want to make it a nice place to live.
And Sheriff, that has to frustrate you too when you hear, well, why haven't you solved this crime? Like I said, it takes time to build a case and get something where you can get a conviction and throw the bad person behind bars.
Well, what's lost in that discussion quite often, and quite often recently actually, is the fact that we've had great success with cold cases. We've actually solved cold cases that have put people in jail. The person I'm thinking of right now is going to be in jail till he's 80 years old. Who he had committed a sexual assault on a young woman many years ago, and we solved it through DNA evidence. Most of the cold cases that we have, most of them that we know who did it. And this isn't a matter of finding a suspect and developing a case. We know who did it, either through, in some cases the people are deceased. In some cases there's issues with the prosecution. We've tried to get prosecution and aren't able to. There are a very limited number of cases out there right now that we are at a loss for a suspect for. So, if you hear someone talking about that, it's a bunch of hooey. We know who've done these cases. We know we have suspects in them. We just, for whatever reason or not, we haven't been able to get prosecution on them.
Okay.
So, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so go ahead, wrap up, and then we'll go to our last break.
Oh, okay. No, I've talked enough.
Okay. Well, stay there.
You don't hear me say that too often.
Well, you stay there because when we come back, we're going to wrap up this edition of the Morning Magazine. We're getting our monthly update with the Wood County Sheriff's Department. Welcome back to the final portion of today's edition of the Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 and WFHR.com. And we also want to thank our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media for being here today. we're going to, this is August, guys, and that means pretty soon those school buses will, stop your crying, will be rolling again.
Kids shut the radio off right now.
But as we get closer to the school year, talk about how the Wood County Sheriff's Department gets it, because you have a big role to play because the large amount of rural area Wood County covers and all those bus routes that are picking up kids once the schools open again.
Absolutely. As we've talked about, we're always refining our approach to things and how we handle them, but the start of school is nothing new for the Sheriff's Department. We'll have our patrol deputies out in high populated areas or high traffic density areas for the bus routes. Years ago, Sheriff Reichert implemented having the patrol staff doing more school walkthroughs. Again, that's providing safety and security for the schools, but again, it goes in with our community approach of the children and staff seeing our officers in a non-confrontational manner. It's a chance for the officers to say good morning to the kids and staff, and be seen as a person. So with school starting up again, we'll just revamp our effort to make sure our deputies are in the high traffic areas, making sure people are slowing down where they need to be, stopping for school buses as appropriate, and then making sure that we're seen within the schools so that the students know we're there for them. We have an investigator, Sergeant Sarah McCormick, who will be up working with the county schools. She's our school resource officer, if you will. She's assigned to juvenile affairs investigations. And it's just a department-wide approach to the school starting again and them seeing, whether it be a uniform or our investigators in the schools, and again, that increased presence on the road to get people to slow down for the buses. It's not easy for anyone, certainly even the patrol staff, if we have to deal with a crash where children are hurt or even worse because people aren't paying attention to those things. So you do a good job of that, Carl. You keep on it. You get our message out that when school is back, people need to be watching for the big yellow buses or the little red ones or whatever color they might be, transporting to and from different programs. When the stop arm's out and the lights are lighted, stop.
And even before that, because I had someone call up on last year on the over the back fence. It was a bus driver. When you start seeing flashing yellow, that means stop, because that means they're about to stop and let some kids off. That's not the time when you go rushing, trying to.
Absolutely. That's
against the law. You can't do that. So you start seeing they're flashing that yellow. That's a heads up. Stop.
Absolutely.
Gentlemen, one of the big concerns, of course, going into this school year is safety, for lack of a better word, from shooting incidents in schools and the like. For lack of your thoughts about it, it's been talked about in the state legislature. There's money been allocated to school districts to provide increased safety. Sheriff, your thoughts on this whole issue, because as school starts ramping up again, this is going to come to the forefront, and we're going to hear the debate start again.
Certainly, to use some school slang, we've done our homework. We've been involved all summer with different schools in terms of emergency planning with them, and we are ready to go. Even more forethought. Years ago when people weren't talking about this, we were sending people, as Quentin had mentioned, we were sending people to schools to do walkthroughs and assessments of things that we viewed as dangerous or things that we could change. So I don't think that there's any amount of caution that is too much in regards to this. There's a number of reasons for this happening. You could talk about the proliferation of handguns in our community right now. Not just in our community, but in our country. How easy it is for some people to get handguns. The mental health situation regarding individuals getting these weapons. There's enough problems to go around, but we choose not to really worry about. We have no control over what the laws are going to be regarding someone with mental health issues getting a gun. What we do have control over is planning and having people in place and having a plan with the schools to take action should something happen. You know, we've been at the table with all of these, with all the individuals that are pertinent to it, and we are best prepared as we could be at this point for that type of incident to happen. That being said, is it going to be easy? Is it going to be something that we're going to definitely win or be successful at? You don't know. You know, that's just the world that we live in right now, and the society that we live in. We don't know what everyone's going to, what someone could think of, or what could motivate a person to become involved in that type of thing. We don't know if the person that we see at when we go to the mini mart on the corner, if that person might be the person that would do this. But what we can do is try, and that's certainly what we've been doing.
With the summertime that's left, gentlemen, anything you wanted to put out there to the public to be aware of? We've talked about scams. We talked about anything else that you think the public needs to be aware of going forward as we've now started the last month essentially of summer.
No unusual or new message. Keep it slow, drive responsibly, drink responsibly, get the designated drivers, do what you can to protect your property, lock your vehicles.
I've heard that.
Messages.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there was people aren't locking, and this is not a problem. This is like a statewide problem. They're saying, lock your vehicles.
Yes. We live in a great community. We live in a great area here in central Wisconsin, and I'm not going to try to say otherwise, but why not take the extra second to lock your car, keep valuables out of it, bring them in with you at night, so that we don't tempt the other half of people to trying to get something for nothing. I don't see it as a dire problem or anything along those lines. It's just more of the same. The more we can remind the community to take care of those things, they can protect themselves from becoming a victim in the first place. So lock your homes, lock your vehicles, just out of habit, not because anything significant or crazy is going on in the county or a particular area at this time. Just getting that good habit. Practice makes perfect, and then it'll be second nature. You'll be locking up your vehicles, and at the worst case, a would-be burglar or thief sees that your stuff's locked up and moves on to somebody else's. And we get a whole community doing that, they'll move out of ours. So.
Yeah. This, a lot about crime prevention is doing the simple things.
Take the easy
Very
work.
To lock your doors, lock it, and be careful. And even with your smartphones, be careful about the emails you may respond to or the like. If you're getting an email from somebody you've never heard of before or don't know, I delete it.
Just delete it.
Anything else from you, Sheriff? We got less than 2 minutes.
Well, I just want to thank you. Carl, sometimes I think that you should be paid a stipend from Crime Stoppers for the work that you've done over this last decade. In terms of getting information out and the prevention of crime that you've been so much a part of, and I know it's something that you do because you think it's the right thing to do and it's coming from your heart. But we all owe you a big thanks for the things that you've done and for allowing us this forum to talk about things, and even when we're not on there, you're still talking about the stuff that people need to do to protect themselves. And I know I sure have appreciated it, and unfortunately I don't have a lot more to give you than a pat on the back, but I sure have appreciated it.
Well, I appreciate the kind words, sir. I do, guys. An interesting program, and we'll hopefully have a quiet and safe remainder of the summer across Wood County.
Very much agreed, Carl. Thanks for having us.
Okay,
Thanks a lot, Carl.
Okay, you take care. Safe travels back to Wood County.
Thank you, I will.
Okay, and with that, we're going to wrap up this edition of the Morning Magazine here on AM 1320 and streaming live at WFHR.com. We also thank our buddy Jesse from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. You'll be able to view this discussion on their excellent website 24/7 or on your local public access channel.